everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast. I am Jody Grinwald. Take a moment and think about something you have read or something someone said to you that truly resonated with you and stayed with you. Have you ever told that someone how much their words meant to you? This week's guest is John Belizaire. I interviewed John on a show in a prior season. He is the CEO of Soluna Computing, the world's first utility-scale company building modular computing centers for intensive applications like AI, all powered by renewable energy. He's a serial entrepreneur with incredible insight. He's also the author of the new book, Keep Pushing: Timeless CEO Insights to Guide Your Journey to Mastery. He writes the CEO Playbook blog. He has also written an article for the Inspiration from Everyday Changemakers magazine that I publish once a year. And that article meant the world to me while I was up in the air getting over my 27-year fear of flying. You never know how much your words can truly impact someone else's life in a moment when they need them the most. Please follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Today is the Day Live It. Subscribe to our Today is the Day Changemakers podcast via YouTube or stream on all streaming sites. And don't forget, have a fabulous week, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast. I get to interview the incredible inspirers, changemakers, and those who are disrupting the status quo as often as I possibly can. I'm so excited to have met these incredible changemakers from around the world. And today I have John Belizaire with me, and I'm so excited to have you. Hi, John. How are you?
Jody, I'm great. Thank you. And thanks for having me back on the show. I'm really happy to be here.
John was on, I believe it was my first it was the first year of doing these podcasts, and it was just so wonderful to have you on. And I love having guests back to hear what's going on, what's new in your world. So before we get into what I know is going to be another fabulous conversation, I'm just going to read a little bit from your bio, okay?
Okay.
All right. So John is the CEO of Soluna Computing, the world's first utility-scale company building modular, batchable computing centers for intensive applications like cryptocurrency mining, AI, and machine learning powered by renewable energy. As a serial entrepreneur, John has successfully founded and scaled multiple industry-leading technology startups that have achieved market leadership and double-digit growth, including First Best, an insurance software company acquired by Guidewire, and the Theory Center, software company acquired by BEA Systems. Before becoming an entrepreneur, John was the lead architect for Intel's Digital Enterprise Group, and he holds a BS and an ME and J in degrees in computer science from Cornell University, and he's an author. So we have lots of wonderful things to talk about today. So John, there's so much. I know there's a lot that's new. But let's go, let's update everybody a little bit more about Soluna, right? And you're
Sure.
the CEO now of Soluna. So share a little bit about the organization.
Absolutely. At Soluna, we're on a mission to make renewable energy the primary source of power in the world. And to do that, we're focused on solving the big, dark little secret that the industry has, and that is the fact that not all of that green energy actually makes it to the grid, because the grid wasn't designed for power like renewables. The sun doesn't always shine, the wind is not always blowing, and sometimes it blows really heavily, and sometimes it shines really brightly. And so you have a mismatch between power generation and consumption. And so sometimes the grid has to turn some of that power away, and it creates this problem where you could have a lot more green energy on the grid, but it just can't handle it. And so what we do is we build these specialized data centers that consume that wasted energy and turns it into a different resource, which is computing. And we use that computing for all sorts of intensive applications, like you said at the opening. And when we first met, the first time I attended the show, we were just getting started on that journey, and now we're proud to say that we're well into the journey, and we have proof that our solution works. We have developed really strong relationships with power companies and computing firms and technologists that are helping to shape this future, and so we're pretty excited about it. So that's Soluna in a nutshell. Earlier this year, I did ascend to become CEO of the parent company, Soluna Holdings, and we're a public company. We trade as SLNH, and it basically gives us a lot of potential to grow that platform in a host of different applications. And we're starting our foray into AI, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, in this conversation.
Oh, absolutely. Very hot topic, that is for sure. And
Mm-hmm.
it's you maybe when you talk about it, I won't be as scared as I am because I'm such a novice when it comes to that part, when we get to that part.
Absolutely.
But as the new CEO there, no, newer, how long has it been now?
So I started the role in May of this year. So spring
So what
till
has
now.
been your focus as the new CEO?
So we had a challenging year last year. Crypto took a turn into the winter, and Bitcoin dropped, and that affected a lot of companies, including us. And so when I took the helm, the company was going through a whole host of different challenges: liquidity, you know, brand equity, projects that were late because everything that was going on in the industry. And my job was to really turn the ship, get the business growing back into growth again. And for the last what's that, 6 or 9 months now, I've been focused on three main things. One is getting our big flagship project in Texas up and running. And so we now have 50 megawatts, a 50 megawatt facility called Project Dorothy, named after Dorothy Vaughan, the human computer on the moon project. And that new facility is now our flagship facility. It is it's really exciting. It's our biggest. It proves our business model. We have now, as of our last quarterly announcement or business update, we had consumed over 11,000 megawatt hours of wasted energy, which is, I think, is equivalent to like a billion iPhones charged or something like that. And the company is benefiting from all the revenue and profit generation from the facility. And the second focus area has been just to manage our expenses, get us into a place where we can be well positioned to scale as we build more facilities and not have to increase our costs a lot. And then the third area has been to look for expansion opportunities. Where can we find areas to replicate the success of Dorothy, and how can we diversify our revenue so it's not just Bitcoin focused? And so in that period, we have found new projects. So we have the second phase of Dorothy. So Dorothy will go from being 50 megawatts to doubling in size to being 100 megawatts. So that's the next project we're going to be focused on. And then we have another very large wind farm. It's twice the size of the wind farm that Dorothy is based at. And we've been focused on developing a new data center there. And that data center is going to be twice the size of the twice the size Dorothy working on. It'll be like over 166 megawatts. So now we've gone from 75 megawatts, and we can see pretty clearly another 300 or so megawatts that we would be growing to. So and then on the revenue diversification, we now have finished our registration to become what's known as a grid resource. So not only do we eat that wasted energy, but because our data center is flexible, where we can ramp up and ramp down very quickly, we're able to use that flexibility to help the grid when it needs help. So when it needs more power, we can ramp our facility down, returning more of that green energy to the grid. And that is a resource that the grid can pay for. So that increases our revenue there. And then the second area for diversification that we've just started to work on here in late summer was transitioning the company into the AI business. And that's a new and exciting area. I'm a very curious person at heart. And so when there's an opportunity to learn something new, it's very attractive to me. So I've been learning a lot about AI, the AI business, AI computing, AI use cases, and we now have a clear vision on how we will approach the opportunity and how we're gonna take it to market. So Dorothy Phase 2 will have a small AI facility there that we'll use to offer AI compute to a host of different markets. So that's a lot. Now
And
that now that I now that
wow.
you asked me to explain it, yeah, we're we had our first profitable quarter last quarter on an adjusted basis, and it's just a completely different business than it was a year ago.
Wow, that's amazing. And staff wise, has that grown?
We did. We grew last year. We had to shrink the organization a
Hmm.
bit to help with the situation that we were going through. And then we've now grown it back again. So we're upwards of 40 something people at the company. And every data center we launch, we add about a dozen to 24 people, depending on the size of the facility. And so Dorothy is growing the workforce for us, which is exciting because you know, we're creating jobs in these very rural areas. Our facilities are not in Houston, Texas, or so I would love it to be there, but we're in parts of the state that have are less densely populated, but have really great talent that may or may not have real career pathways at that location because there's not a lot of industry there.
Mm.
But that's where renewable energy lives because that's where those natural resources are, right, to monetize for renewables. So what we're doing as a company is also proving that you can build a new data center facility in these parts of the country, which, by the way, will upgrade the infrastructure of that area. It'll bring new smart talent to the area, and we'll be able to give people jobs where they can learn really advanced skills and grow in their career. And so I've been very happy to see some of these young folks joining our organization and growing in their careers and learning something new. So it's pretty exciting.
I'm all about mentorship and helping, those grow, and
Hmm.
especially in areas like you said where there's not a lot of opportunity for work, a good
Right.
work environment. It's wonderful that you're opening the door to that. So kudos to you and your team there for doing that.
Thank you.
We've mentioned AI a couple times already, so I
Hmm.
want to jump into a little bit of that. And you know, most people know, artificial intelligence. I mean, we've been hearing a lot about it. There's a lot of growth around it. It's changing, I feel like, almost every day.
Hmm.
There's something new that's happening. I've seen some demonstrations. Crazy. What can you share with our listeners that has been kind of the most exciting part of AI for you and your organization?
Yeah. So for the listeners out there, I'd like you to think of the following. So about 25 years ago, give or take, there was another super exciting technology that was taking off, and everyone was hearing a lot about it, and some were unsure about what it meant, but everyone's imagination was really sparked by it. And that technology was called the internet. uh, Today we don't really talk much about the internet and about, you know, um, the incredible shift that it has created for the world in the last 2 decades. And that's because it was so transformational that it's basically upgraded our society to a level where its role is now integrated, right? I was in New
Mhm.
York and I was in New York City and I was walking down the street and I saw a phone booth and I was like, wow, they still have these things? Like, who still uses a phone booth?
Right, right.
I can talk to anyone anywhere in the world from my phone. And in some cases, I don't even have to pay for that because that's made possible by the internet. And what's funny is before we all got excited by the internet, it was actually being used by a small select group of super advanced people, mostly the military and researchers. And a new technology came out called Mosaic, or the internet browser, that totally changed that dynamic, where suddenly everyone can benefit from the internet. Everyone can create new ideas, businesses, research, etc., on the internet. And so I remember being in a computer lab at university and seeing this new Mosaic thing and just being blown away and saying, wow, this is going to change everything, you know?
Right.
And last, basically the last year or so, right? I think it was like past last October or something. And AI is going through the same trajectory, right? Suddenly everybody's woken up. AI, like, what is this thing? Like, this is going to change everything. And the reason is because something called Chat GPT was introduced to the market, which basically, democratized the use of AI. Anybody can now go interact with an AI system and have it assist them do just about anything. And that Chat GPT is the Mosaic moment for AI. AI, for many of you out there, is almost 40 years old. Just let's let that sink in for a second. It's actually been around for a long time. It's been used by researchers studying the concept of creating a generalized intelligence. We're not there yet, by the way, but it's the whole focus here is to find, a stepping stone to get there. And it was sort of really leveraged, let's say, in the last decade or so by the big social media platforms, the big internet companies, AI, Amazon, Google, Facebook, have been using AI quietly, behind the scenes to make us increasingly excited about using social media platforms. And it was up until a number of really smart people in that industry decided that, hey, we've got to sort of get our arms around this, otherwise it could really be bad for the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so they left these companies, formed the foundation, and started doing research on how we can create AI that was safe. And that's what formed OpenAI. And the Chat GPT, and so they started working on robot arms and all sorts of funky projects in there. And apparently the Chat GPT piece was just like one guy or one person on the team that was sort of working on that. And I said, I'm going to work on a chat bot, They're like, nobody's going to want a chat bot, And they got to a point where the thing was like, was amazing. They focus it on ingesting the entire internet and teaching it to essentially interact with a human using that data. And this chat bot just took off. In the first 5 days of ChatGPT, it hit a million users. In a month, it had approaching 100 million users on the platform, and that's what sparked everybody talking about it. And I'm telling you guys now that if you're not using this technology, learning about this technology, trying to understand how it might be something that could become a tool for you, the right word isn't you're missing out. I think the right word is you're making a big mistake. Because it will have the same effect, transformational effect on the world as the internet did, but it will do it in half the time. So when the internet did in 20 plus years, AI will now do in about 10. And so the exciting thing is that the application of the chatbot is really ubiquitous. You can apply this concept of taking data, text, information, and finding insights in it to just about any aspect of business. And so that's going to need a lot of computing power to do that. And that need for that computing power is growing at exponential rates. And it has very negative implications for the climate. data centers, traditional data centers, consume a tremendous amount of water. To put it in context, every time you type a request into Chat GPT, um, think of it of think about a liter of Coca-Cola, those liter bottles, that much
Mhm.
water is used for every one of those things you put in there. So think about that the next time you type in like, hey, how would you how would you rewrite this? It's that level of water consumption, and that's both a combination of direct consumption and indirect consumption because of the power usage. So we really have to uh, be cognizant of this technology because it could have um, vastly challenging implications as it relates to climate. That's why we're so excited about it, because if you can somehow move these types of processes to the facilities that we're designing and the locations we're designing, that could have a material effect, especially if you could design the data center so it uses less water, it has a smaller footprint, higher density power, and is using wasted energy versus um, energy off the grid in high population areas where you change the dynamic of energy in that area. We can benefit from this exciting technology without destroying the planet in the process. So that's what we're excited about: sustainable, scalable AI.
Well, I every time I talk to you, I learn something or many things that are new, not realizing that at all about the water consumption. I mean, I don't, I hope I'm not the only one who is learning that now. I mean, because I'll feel very silly, but honestly, I had no idea that
Yeah,
was
yeah,
not at
yeah.
all.
And by the way, even if I'm wrong about a liter, it's not that far off. It could be half a liter, but it's a significant amount.
Yeah,
you know,
whatever. I had no
um,
idea about the water
yeah,
consumption at all. So
yeah. Let
that
me
leads
peek
me to
here. I think
believe
I think it might be. I did the math right
that's
here. It could be like a can of Coke. Might be a can of Coke, not a liter
doesn't
of
matter.
Coke.
That's
But
still
it's basically water consumption. So the water is being consumed and it doesn't come back.
right.
And so
Exactly.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you. And one of the things that I'm learning and I want to share with the listeners too is AI is being used all over and it's any industry that
Hmm.
I know nonprofits are using it now for grant writing. It's all
Hmm.
industries are looking at it to see how can it benefit them and shorten the timeline of what they need to accomplish. So we also need to know the other side of it, which is we just learned a little bit more about the consumption of water and how data centers can help us. So I think that's really
Hmm.
thank you. That was really, really valuable.
Ham 10 is a leader in IT enterprise solutions and staffing. They are driven to transform their clients' business performances. They do this every day by providing their clients with the best services and products. Products like BizLego, an online community platform, and Colear, a unique learning management system. They also transform the lives of women and children through their associated nonprofits, SheTech, which supports women in and joining the technology field, and Softkin, support organization for kids in need. PAM10, technology for social good. Go to pam10.com for more information.
So I hear you wrote a book, John.
People are like, when do you sleep? Like, how did you write a book? Um, I did. I wrote one last year. Came out this fall actually, and I did the writing over many, sneaked times in the closet somewhere writing the book. And I say it's my first book. What I was trying to do there is to um, just before we started recording, you kind of told me about how a snippet of my writing sort of affected you on one of your trips. And I have found that in my journey as an entrepreneur and CEO, there are lots of things that I learned that are sort of permanent insights, right? I had this really bad experience with a deal or a transaction, or there's this really gnarly problem, I'm working through. And when we get through it, I realize what it was meant to teach me. And over the last 3 years or so, I've been writing those insights either in long form articles or small sort of snippets that are almost like a letter back to myself or a letter to someone who's never seen something like this before and say, hey, here's something you should think about. And I started writing them, collecting them, posting them. And so the book is a compendium of those insights, if you will, that are timeless in their nature. And it's the first edition. And as I collect more, the book will get bigger and bigger in each edition. And the way I envision people using it, and people have sort of told me that that's how they use it. You can sit and read it straight cover to cover, maybe over coffee one morning, or you can read one chapter a night, for a whole year and just sort of like see if it speaks to you, uh, you know, at that particular moment, with anything that you're going through, especially if you're an entrepreneur or a leader. I have found that those insights are very compelling. And so that's the book. It's called Keep Pushing. And that's actually fundamentally what I believe is so important as anyone endeavoring to do anything, setting a goal for yourself or accomplishing. The most important thing you need to realize is that you should never give up no matter what. Just keep pushing through whatever is going on, because it's going to be a long journey. It's going to be a bumpy journey, and the journey itself is the experience that you'll find. And what you're going to find is you're going to be growing a lot throughout that journey. And so the book helps you along on that.
Where can everybody buy the book?
It's available on Amazon. There's a Kindle version, which apparently has a bug in it, which I've got to fix. But
always something, right?
Yeah, and but there's a Kindle and a printed version, so you can get the printed version on Amazon.
I just want to go back to what you said a minute ago. When I started the podcast, then I created a international forum, and part of that is a magazine that goes out every year. And I ask individuals, anybody who wants to share. It's like chicken soup for the soul for change makers. That's really what
Yeah,
it is, right?
that's great.
And
Yeah,
and John, and there's a cost to be in it because I have to, get it printed and all that fun stuff. But John is one of the many that have put in, a beautiful excerpt about pretty much about keep pushing.
yeah,
But I don't have it in front of me. I wish I did, but I will. Anybody who wants it, send me an email, Jody at today'sthedayliveit.com. I can send you a copy. But what I can tell you is I was on a flight. Haven't flown for 27 years, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and I had that book with me and I flipped and I was like, whoever's excerpt comes up is the one I'm going to read, is the one I needed the message. And it was yours. And, I'm a white knuckle flyer. I hadn't flown, petrified, and it got me through the flight. So I can tell you that John's words of wisdom are just incredible at the times when you need them because you're feeling good, but also at the times where you may not be feeling so good.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well,
So the message is keep pushing for sure. Go ahead, John. I'm
correct.
sorry.
Keep pushing. Yeah, I love that story because that's what I hope that my writing does. It helps other people learn from my experience as an entrepreneur and a CEO. And that's very gratifying. We're here for a purpose. It's ultimately not self-serving. It's ultimately to help others. And and so I've always wanted to find a way to do that, that could be scalable, and, folks want to have some of my time to chat with me and ask me questions and stuff like that. And sometimes I just, I feel bad. I can't do calls with everyone. And I wanted to find a way that I can get, some valuable insights to young entrepreneurs and professionals out there.
You said something before about the fact, when do you sleep, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
those who are either type A personality or leaders and CEOs, we're all on a mission, right? And I feel like we juggle because we want to do good in the world. We want to fill our buckets. We want to fill other people's buckets. And there's CEOs and people, of all levels that will be listening to this. What do you do when you're feeling like you need to keep pushing? And where do you go to? We have people that are listening that may feel like, what, I don't know how to do all of this and feel great and strong every day because it's draining. what, how can people, in your advice, refill their buckets, and how do you refill yours?
That's a great question. Especially now because I feel like I'm getting drained. There's a lot
See,
we
yeah.
got a lot going on. Uh, and I go to the woods. That's my thing. I have found that to be incredibly helpful. So there's an article on my blog, ceoplaybook.co is it's called Finding Solitude, and it's basically an article about why CEOs should find time to be alone. And I try to find time to be alone a few times a year. And on that, during those periods, what I do is I try to completely disconnect. So I shut up all my devices. I take a pen and a notebook, and usually I start a new one on that particular trip. And I'll just walk through the woods, listening to the sounds of the woods, of the crunch of the leaves under my feet, breathing in the air outside, and trying to connect back to me as a person, an individual, a part of a global species, and really just processing the thoughts that come to my mind. You know, I think high achievers, you know, like myself and the folks on that are listening in, we're constantly feel like, if we're not working on the, multiple things or getting the next big thing done and so forth, and then, we're not making progress. Actually, you will make the what I have found is you make the most progress by walking away from all of the things that you think you have to do and just quieting your mind and becoming more centered, and um letting the fact that you have a lot more, um call it infinite intelligence, than you think. It's just that it's just clouded by all the tasks that you've put on your list that you think you have to do. And those walks in the woods for me really just allow me to regenerate, replenish my energy, and I'm typically going someplace where I can get some great food and just exercise and just focus on myself. And what I find is when I come back, I'm just more rested, my brain is sharper. I've processed things that have really been bothering me, and I just come back a better leader, a better husband, and a better dad because I've had the time to refresh those things. So that's what I recommend. It's not. There's no like, people are often attracted to like hacks where you can try to, do more multitasking, or hacks that allow you to, you know, um, process your to-do list a bit better. And I've tried a couple of those things. Don't get me wrong. I find that ultimately what I just described is a much better return on investment. Just invest in some quiet alone time with yourself.
It's funny, another one of my guests, who is a phenomenal change maker as well. He does not schedule meetings after like 3:30 in the afternoon. Everything is done earlier in the day, but
Right.
after that, it's administrative tasks. But he needs to then regroup with himself, and says that's a time where he's not at his best anymore. He's
Hmm.
given from 6 o'clock in the morning, he's an early riser. By 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the afternoon, he's still working, but he's just not at his best to make those great connections and the big decisions and all of
Right.
that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so he knows what is his boundary and what is his line, and creating those without the guilt of feeling like I'm not doing another thing, I'm not adding another
Right.
thing to my list. And it's hard.
It is. Yeah.
It's hard to put those boundaries up, right?
It is really hard to do that. And I've started doing some of that too. I put like blocked out time, called DNS time, do not schedule time, on my calendar,
Mhm.
where I can just disconnect or work on something in a very concentrated burst, right? Where I'm doing what I call deep work, and or just honestly just like sit there and do nothing and just breathe. And uh it's really, really helpful. I have found it to be an incredible tool that has accelerated my performance and made me a better leader. And so I highly recommend that folks start to think about not managing your time so much, but your energy. Oh, and you mentioned this person is an early to bed. They try to get as much sleep as possible. I have two young kids, so that's proving challenging. But but I really try to like prioritize sleep. Your body really needs it to do that replenishment, and do exercise as well. But even during the day, just like really staying connected to where your energy levels are. And if you're just too tired, like, yeah, make that decision tomorrow. You don't have to, succumb to the pressure of like, you've got to be this strong, leader, and people come to you and you got to be able to make a decision on the spot. That's not
Right.
actually true. You can think about things for a second. You can pause, and what you'll find is you'll come up with the better solutions and the better decisions as a result.
Yes, and for those like myself, I mean, some of us are workaholics, right? I mean, it's what
Yep.
fills our bucket. It's like you sit on the couch and you want to just put on a movie that just kind of is mind numbing,
Yep.
and then you're like you feel guilty for a second. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
I got 10 million other things I've got to do right now,
Yeah.
and I myself am you learn to give yourself permission because nobody else is going to do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Say it's okay.
It's
The
okay.
whole world won't fall apart if you're not doing those million things in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Actually, you'll find that, you know, things kind of hang together a bit more when you do that. I think that, and by the way, I do that. I watch there's a show that I'm not going to
Ooh,
like,
tell us.
I'm not, no, it's like a couple of these, Netflix shows that are not,
Yep.
and, I've been watching it, and, um, it's really like bad. Like it's like a B quality. But I know that, or I know it, because I don't want to have to think about it. I don't want to have to like, oh wow, this is very insightful, and no, I don't. I just want to turn off my brain for a second, and it does help to replenish me. But sometimes, like my neocortex kicks in and says, this is like a really bad show. Like, what are you
I
doing?
love it.
But I need it, so it's
Yeah.
pretty fun.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for all that advice. And I always try to ask, especially those who are just doing multitude of things. I always reference this TED talk that I got to listen to, because I'm actually trying to have more people listen to it because I think it's great.
Mm,
It's by Emily Warnock, and it's about being a multi-potentialite. And it's those who feel so like they feel alone because those who aren't multi-potentialites can't understand why their focus isn't just on one thing. And
right.
those of us who are doing multiple things like you are, it
Mm,
fills us up. And
yeah.
so it's a gift and a curse at the same
It
time
is.
because
It
when we're
is a
not
gift and a
doing
curse.
it, we feel bad. But yeah, it is a
Hmm.
gift and a curse.
Yeah, for sure.
So, John, anything else that you want to just share real quick before we end? Anything else on Soluna that we should know about?
So I think on the AI piece, I touched on it. What we're going to do is really focus on building, sustainable data centers for AI training and tuning that can help to accelerate the potential for the technology and give it a more sustainable platform. And folks should just watch our story. There's some exciting things that we've got coming out that will really help with the trajectory of this technology. But overall, I think that I'm just really excited about what we're working on, and I'm really excited about the team that I'm working with. And if there are shareholders listening, I'm really happy for the patience that they've had with us and helping us to uh, achieve our mission. And um, there's more exciting things coming down the pike.
And I also want to share that if people want to learn more about Soluna, they should go to, if I'm correct here, solunacomputing.com.
Yes, correct. And
Awesome.
we're also on social. We're at Soluna Holdings on LinkedIn, the LinkedIn page. and on X, formerly known as Twitter. We're also at Soluna Holdings as well, and we publish lots of content. On our website, there's some great articles about some of the initiatives we're finding and what we're working on, and we just at the time that we're recording, it's not out yet, but it will be coming out. It's a white paper about the carbon footprint of our data centers. Our data centers have been found to emit 18% less carbon than a typical traditional data center because of the design, the location of the facility, and so forth. And we did some back of the envelope math, and if all data centers, like the broader data center community, could reduce their carbon footprint by 18%, that would be the equivalent of reducing 11.5 million cars or something like that from the road. It's pretty compelling, and it would have a material effect on our climate trajectory. So we're definitely onto something, and that's what jazzes me, gets me excited waking up every day, that this is working. And if we could get it to a scale, or replicate the technology throughout the industry, it could really have a materially positive effect on the climate, and that's what we're here for. So pretty exciting.
It is very exciting. And we can all feel your passion when you talk about it and how excited you get, which is always contagious when people feel that way. So
For sure.
I look forward to, in next year, another recap, because it sounds like things are just consistently changing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we've got a lot of positive things ahead. So I'll be happy to come back and give you guys an update.
Please do. And CEO Playbook, your newsletter that you put out. How
Yep.
can people sign up for that?
You just go to ceoplaybook.co, and you'll see newsletters there. You'll see some of the articles, and once a week I send out a compendium of interesting articles and insights from other CEOs and other writers that can be helpful, plus sort of like a featured article from the blog that always seems to hit somebody. I always get an email back saying, I really needed this week. And that really, gets me excited for the next week to pull it together. So and now the book and content from the book is integrated into that, and so it's getting better every day, and I appreciate all the subscribers and the feedback they've offered to me. So definitely drop by ceoplaybook.co for some of that, for folks who need some insights or some motivation for their journey.
Highly recommend it. It's helped me so many times, and I love when I see it come over. So please sign up for that. And I myself, I will be purchasing the Keep Pushing book. I cannot wait to read it. You're so insightful, and I'm so grateful to have met you and to learn more about what you're doing and all that you're doing. And now you're in the AI space, which I think the more we can talk about AI, and as it's growing, we need more people who understand it and can explain it to us layman people who are learning too. But we just don't have the same exact knowledge capacity as those who love it and understand it exactly what it does. Anything else you want to share with the listeners before we go?
No, just that I love this show, and it's just really great to be back on. And thank you.
Oh, well, we love having you on, John. So thank you so much. And I am going to say what I say at the end of every podcast. And before I do, again, lastly, solunacomputing.com. Make sure you go to Soluna Holdings on all of the social media platforms, and then ceoplaybook.co, and also Amazon. Keep pushing. Go purchase that book. And lastly, as I always say at the end of every single podcast, today is the day. You cannot go back to yesterday, and you do not yet own tomorrow. So what small or large steps are you going to take today to get yourself closer to your goals? John Belizaire, thank you so much for being part of the show yet again. I can't wait to have you on in a year and see all the growth that continues.
Thanks, Jody. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great week, everyone.